something like The Revenant, right? And I don't mean Leo DiCaprio's frozen hairy whiteness in the snow. I mean something more like the undead, right? And although as Latinos are being turned into undead political subjects, and Muslims are being turned into undead political subjects, and Black Americans are being turned into undead political subjects, I suggest that in fact we're facing a revenant, which is the undead racial politics of the Cold War, right? If Linda gave us a longer trajectory, I think that those structures of feeling and resentment and empowerment and racialized connection to hegemony come straight from the Cold War, and we're close enough generationally that grandparents, parents, and even your generation who voted for Trump are in touch with that cultural memory. So let's try and unpack the long political unconscious around that. Who is a good and bad enemy, right? Russia was a good old enemy, right? Because they were a big hegemonic power, but they're also white, right? And so you have this bizarre inversion with the Trump, Putin, right? Alliance, hatred, romance, whatever's going on there. So my injunction to you is to think about the crazy political unconscious, right? The fantasies that are being circulated and will continue to circulate, and unpack them for yourselves, for your friends, for your students. Transaction versus transcendence, right? What we've experienced here in voting is not only a kind of political unconscious of white supremacy and a long history, but also a whole bunch of people who decided that transaction was what counted, that it didn't matter what he said, or what he did, or who he raped, or who he assaulted, or who he attacked, that the transaction will make it all worthwhile. And what does that mean for the American voter, right? What does it mean for American citizenship? That transaction rules and will continue to rule the day. I don't think it's just the economy, stupid. I don't think this is a redux of Clinton. I think that that Trump not only captured the Clinton people in a different way. So that's something to unpack, the notion of transaction. I think we're going to track a very interesting return of global anti-Americanism. Some of us were in a volume years ago of anti-Americanism, and I think it's very interesting. It's going to be interesting to see what those critiques, right, those anti-American critiques, will bring to bear. Of course, that anti-Americanism will be attended by a possible growing right-wing tide, global white right-wing tide. My people, the Latinos, my alleged people. I'm a Cuban American, and for a year I've been saying Cuban Americans have changed. My demographic won't vote for the right, and Cuban Americans in Miami and elsewhere voted for Trump. What does that mean? Cuban Americans are just one drop in the bucket, right? But one of the things that it means is that the politics transaction win for them, that there's that old Cold War mobilization, right, among some Latinos, right? And that there's a new apathy and political sort of cynicism where the voter who is not attached to the project of institutions or nations will go for the most transactional, most cynically pragmatic candidate, and the candidate that will appeal to their shame and to their insecurity. And I'm speaking about brown people who think they're white and who want to be white and who are triangulated between black people and white people, and they want to identify with the power structure. So I think that this is something that needs continuously to be unpacked. The question of patriarchy and feminism and women is something that we need continuously to return to. Most Latinos here, my family, 3 generations of displacement from Spain and from Spain to Cuba, right? From Cuba to the United States, and I count myself as an exile from Miami to New York. But if you think of what that means, is how many immigrants, how many of you here are from successive generations of dispossession, not only of personal capital, but of political capital, and of a sense of deep fragility and instability with relation to how much you will invest in a political project. And whether you are an immigrant from the Latino community, from Muslim American community, from the Asian American community, the great project, I think, of the politics ahead is how to reinvent connections, alliances, solidarities, mobilize people to feel like they are invested in a politics safely here. And finally, the students got ahead of me, and I want to of course, because you're all ahead of us, right? The other thing is that I think we come here with humility, right? Because your generation, whatever your generations are, right, have launched a series of political projects that our generation, many of us prisoners of Cold War, could not have imagined and are happy to welcome. But don't give up on institutions either, okay? Especially for Latinos. Certainly media, legacy media, media in Spanish are ways to combat the informal, anecdotal authority, right, of lies and political fictions. I think that's what I have to say. Thanks very much.
Rolling. The turnout is terrific. The outside is packed, and the rooms are overflow. Rooms are full, and I think it just gives you a sense of the urgency of the moment. I just want to bring up a colleague, Becca. She's a historian of early America and a settler colonial tradition that has somehow been reinvigorated by a real estate tycoon from Queens.
Well, I don't know if it's been reinvigorated, Greg. I think it's just been there all